Hey, what is up guys? Maddie from the Toasty Bros, and I am back with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing some more stuff with Sandy, the $250 Scrapyard Wars inspired PC build that I did with a couple other YouTubers, which if you haven't seen that video, hit the I in the top right corner to check it out. So what we're going to be doing with Sandy is doing some GPU overclocks. Now what I do normally for overclocking graphics cards is I look up online my model graphics card and see what other people have achieved before I attempt to do something that's a little bit outrageous or try to underperform what I could possibly get out of my graphics card. So for example, I went to hardocp.com, which basically is a really awesome website that allows you to find different user tests on overclocks of graphics cards. And my specific model of graphics card is an XFX 7950, and it's a 3GB variation. So I went online, looked at what kind of overclocks they could achieve, and basically went with it. What I plan on doing is running the Shadow of Mordor built-in benchmark and do a comparison between the two. One before I do an overclock and one after I do an overclock, and see if I can just up my ante a little bit and get some better performance. I'm mainly hoping to achieve an overclock that doesn't require any additional voltage, because it will limit the lifespan of the graphics card when adding more voltage to it. And I really want to keep this card running as new as possible because I really want to resell it somewhere down the line. And also just try to see what I can get out of the box without adding any more voltage, because that's also the best way to overclock without ending the lifespan or making your graphics card not survive nearly as long as it should. Alright guys, so we're going to get a baseline test, which I already did this test in the actual $250 PC benchmarking video, but we're going to get a baseline test by running the Shadow of Mordor built-in benchmark utility before the overclock is applied. So how you do that, if you don't know already, is you go into the options, go to benchmark, it's literally right here, and hit this, and you wait for it to load up. And it's going to run through a series of gameplay and just basically benchmark the system with a minimum, average, and maximum FPS. So I will see you on the other side of the benchmark. Alright guys, so now that the benchmark's done, you can see the results here. I'll show them on the screen because you probably can't see it. But we have an average FPS of 69, a maximum of 108, and a minimum of 45. Now those frame rates are very reasonable for this title, but the one thing I want to hope to achieve is get that minimum FPS a little bit higher, maybe into the mid-50s, maybe even to 60s with this overclock. Now this overclock will most likely not get the minimums up to the 60s without adding voltage, but that may be for a later video. What we're going to be doing is applying a generous overclock. This is an overclock that I consider very generous, that anyone can just apply to their graphics card out of the box and basically get more performance out of it. So what we're going to do is jump into MSI Afterburner and basically add this generous overclock. Alright guys, so we're here in MSI Afterburner. MSI Afterburner is my overclocking utility of choice. There are many other ones out there, but I highly recommend MSI Afterburner. It's been the most reliable for me, and it's a very easy user interface to get used to, and it looks really nice. So what we're going to be doing is applying an overclock of 1070 MHz from the 925 MHz on the core clock, and then a memory clock overclock of 1700 MHz from the normal memory overclock of 1250. So we'll just go ahead and apply that. All you gotta do is go to core clock and just type in 1070, and then the memory clock, we're gonna go 1700, and we're gonna hit apply. And then when I do overclocks, I always like to make sure it's stable. So once I've applied the overclock settings and I minimize everything, I like to load up a program like Furmark, which is a very solid stability program that allows you to stress your GPU to 100% to make sure it doesn't have any blue screen errors or crashes. I highly recommend you run this program a lot longer than I'm going to run it. I'm just running it for test purposes because I know this overclock is stable because I tested it beforehand. But when you actually are testing an overclock, I recommend you run it for a good 30 plus minutes or even longer. Test for stabilities overall in the system. So what I do is change the resolution to 1920 by 1080, and I just like to max it the crap out. Like, this graphics card may not be able to handle this, and it's probably going to get total crap FPS by doing this, but it totally loads up the GPU, and that's the entire point of the stress test. So what we're going to do is run the stress test and hit go, and let the Furmark test sink in, and allow the GPU usage to get as high as it possibly can get. So the stress test is going to basically stress the GPU for a short amount of time, recommended 30 minutes at least, so you can actually see if this overclock that you applied is stable. One thing I also want to note is you want to make sure your temperatures aren't outrageous either. 90 degrees Celsius is very hot, and would be the most I would recommend you get on a GPU. Now, I know some people out there would probably argue what temperature should be lower or not, but 90 degrees Celsius is the highest I would ever let my graphics card get, and I highly recommend you don't get any higher than that. If this graphics card gets too hot, I might have to dial down the clocks, but with no added voltage, the temp should remain somewhat relatively the same. Also, my case airflow situation is really bad, considering Sandy is in a very bad case, and all the tangled cords and everything are everywhere, so I do expect pretty high temps. But really, in general, this graphics card should be performing fine temperature-wise, because under gaming load, where it should be relatively lower than 100% usage, depending on the use case, this graphics card should be performing pretty cool with this XFX cooler on it. It actually works really well. We're getting around temperatures around 80 degrees Celsius right now, which seems to be the topping point. So I think we're going to stop the test right here, and we're going to go right ahead and run the Shadow of Mordor benchmark utility once again. Alright guys, so we are back in Shadow of Mordor, and we're going to run the benchmark once again. Nothing has changed settings-wise, and we're just going to see if we get any performance gains. So let's go ahead and hit benchmark. Let's see what we get. Alright guys, so these numbers are probably a little bit more outrageous than they should have been. There might have been some issues with the last test and being the core clock, but I am getting an average FPS now of 86, a maximum of 121, and a minimum of 59. That minimum is really awesome. It grew from 49 to 59, nearly 60 FPS in the minimum, just by doing a generous overclock on the core clock. Now this is a really awesome thing here, and you guys out there who have graphics cards, especially like a 7950 or something like that, with a really good cooling system on it and you're not overclocking your graphics card, I highly recommend you at least do the bare minimum here and overclock something without adding any voltage, because it's free performance. It's right there for you. As long as your system performs very well, you have free performance right there for you to get. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like down below and comment what kind of graphics card you're running and what kind of overclocks you got going. I'm very interested to hear what kind of stuff you have going on, because this was actually a big success, and I really wish I did this during the build competition because my graphics card would have performed a lot better, but you know, this is what I got, and it's a really awesome system, and the 7950 is a pretty good overclocker, which a lot of people know. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video once again. Be sure to follow all our social media links like Twitter, Twitch, and all that other sort of stuff. Hit that sub button for more content from the Toasty Bros, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Peace out.